You're about to listen to a BBC podcast, and trust me, you'll get there in a moment. But if you're a comedy fan, I'd really like to tell you a bit about what we do. I'm Julia Mackenzie, and I commission comedy podcasts at the BBC. It's a bit of a dream job, really. Comedy is a fantastic, joyous thing to do because really you're making people laugh, making people's days a bit better, helping them process all manner of things. But, I also know that comedy is really subjective and everyone has different tastes. So we've got a huge range of comedy on offer, from satire to silly, shocking to soothing, profound to just general prattling about. So if you fancy a laugh, find your next comedy at BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to the Scottish Football Podcast, bringing you up to speed on all the latest news in no time at all. It's Wednesday, 6th of December. I'm Alasdair Lamont, and coming up today...
James right on the edge of the box, shifts it onto the right foot, takes the strike and it's in! It's into the top corner! And England are running riot at Hampden!
After last night's Hampden humiliation, is Pedro Martinez Losa still the right person to lead Scotland?
It's probably one of my sorest nights, to be honest with you, in football. I just thought the level of performance was miles away.
We'll hear why Stuart Kettlewell is hurting following a drubbing in Dingwall. And...
Morelos goal! He's been coming! 8 minutes in! Morelos slides down onto his knees in front of the Hearts supporters!
Can Rangers triumph at Tynecastle again? We run the rule over tonight's Premiership fixtures.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast.
Well, I'm joined this morning by our chief sports writer, Tom English. Tom, how are you keeping today?
Very well, Al. Nice and chilly outside. Nice fresh morning.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's going to be a cold one tonight at the games if you're all heading out there, but time to get wrapped up, certainly. Plenty of insight and analysis to come from Tom shortly. We'll also be hearing from Derek Watson of the Well Society. But before that, let's take a quick spin through this morning's Scottish football news. Pedro Martinez Losa is facing some difficult questions this morning after his Scotland team were hammered 6-0 by England at Hampden in the Women's Nations League. They finished Group A rock bottom with 2 points from 6 games. 2 injury time goals in Belgium's 4-0 win over the Netherlands mean that England finished second, and as a result, Team GB won't be at the Paris Olympics next summer. Another manager who probably suffered a sleepless night is Motherwell's Stuart Kettlewell, who described their 3-0 defeat away at Ross County as his sorest night in football. Gary Mackay-Steven has joined Kilmarnock on a short-term deal. The 33-year-old former Celtic winger has been training with the Rugby Park side recently after leaving Hearts in the summer. And Matt O'Reilly has revealed the secret to his sparkling Celtic form. He says he's trying to approach the game with childish playfulness, which is very much the approach Tom English takes to all things football these days.
It's the only approach I have, Al. It's all I've got in my locker.
I think it's probably for the best. Let's start with Scotland then from last night, Tom. Pedro Martinez Losa apologising for that 6-0 defeat. He's not long signed a new contract, but what do you think the future holds for him?
Well, look, he signed it, I think, in September till 2027. So I think the future holds probably a lot more years as Scotland manager, because are they going to pay him off now? I doubt it. Like, you look at it in context, right? This was a fiendishly difficult group that Scotland were in. England world number 4, Netherlands world number 7, Belgium world number 18. Scotland are ranked 23rd. So it's not surprised that they didn't get out of this group. It's disappointed they didn't win any games. It's certainly a huge embarrassment that they lost 6-0. But I'm not surprised that they finished bottom at all. I think the biggest problem for Losa is the failure to get to the World Cup. That was a winnable game against Ireland at Hampden. The stars were aligned.
Yeah.
And they blew it. That's the greater failing, not this, but it's back to back now. So there is a big question mark about his management of this team, but is he going anywhere? I very much doubt it.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly a damaging result psychologically as much as anything, but I guess I look at it, having covered the women at 2 successive major tournaments, I just get the sense that they've not really kicked on. In fact, arguably gone backwards since that point.
That's unarguable, I think. They were convincing. They looked a convincing side a number of years ago. They looked like they were trending in the right direction and all the rest of it. But now it's just bruising defeats. Like that said, all of the games were close, bar the 6-0 last night in the group. You're playing, and you look at England World Cup finalists, but they lost to Belgium in this group. They lost to Netherlands in this group. So these are good teams that Scotland have been losing to. But the big picture, they probably are going backwards. And, the management of this team looks unconvincing right now.
Well, a special episode of our sister podcast, Behind the Goals, with Leanne Crichton and the Scotland captain, Rachel Corsie, will be out later today. They'll be giving their reaction to last night's result and Scotland's Women's Nations League campaign in general. Let's get a little clip of that now.
England are a good team, and the scoreline's really, really a sore one. But I think probably the bigger disappointment is just how little we were able to compete in certain areas of the pitch that ultimately really hurt us. And I just felt, especially the nature of the goals, I just think we have to try and make them work so much harder to get opportunities, and that's so frustrating because I do think we've shown that we can compete so much better with these top nations. I think the away fixture, we certainly showed that. We took a lot from that. And I think through the campaign, tonight, the result against Netherlands away from home as well, I think those are two really tough lessons for all of us.
Behind the Goals with Scotland captain Rachel Corsie and Leanne Crichton. Out later this afternoon, definitely not one to be missed after what happened at Hampden last night. A big win also for Ross County. They beat Motherwell 3-0, and one man who made the trek to Dingwall, and perhaps regretting that now, is Derek Watson of the Welsh Society. Thanks for coming on, Derek. The worst performance in a terrible run is how your manager Stuart Kettlewell described it. Would you go along with that?
Yeah, 100%, Alasdair. As you touched on earlier in the show, Stuart said that was one of his worst performances so far in the season, and the hardest one to take. And I can only echo his thoughts and opinions on that. You make the long trip to Dingwall on a cold Tuesday night, expecting something in return, and unfortunately that wasn't there. It's been a difficult season so far. We started pretty well, but it's been a downward spiral for the last 12 games, unfortunately.
Yeah, the only time I've seen Motherwell in the flesh this season was at Celtic Park just 10 days ago or so. And you kind of felt that they were excellent defensively that day, obviously. And I guess what you'd have been looking for is that to have been the spark, the platform to then go on and build in that. Clearly you didn't lose at the weekend, but what do you feel is going wrong just at the moment?
It's an interesting reference here as the Celtic Park one, because we defended excellently. We showed some fight and we got that late goal. And as you rightly point out, that was the one where we really thought we can kick on from here and we can make a difference. But constantly we're losing cheap goals to set pieces. We go up there last night and the manager's been pretty clear about how we have to be better defensively. What happens within minutes is you lose another goal from a corner, before half the fans will even get back for the pie stall and go into their seats. So it's concerning. You hope this is something that they're working on in training, and I'm sure Stuart and the boys are, but it's just not good enough, and we need to improve, and we need to improve fast.
12 games without a win, Tom, despite having the likes of that draw at Celtic Park within there. It's not the type of run that managers tend to get away with for long in the Premiership, is it?
No, it isn't. Like Motherwell, it's weird, They lost 1-0 to Rangers. They drew 1-1 with Celtic. They lost 2-1 to Celtic, or the 90th minute winner. Against the top two teams in the country, very, very competitive. Yeah. Then they go and they concede 3-3 draw against Ross County, lose 4-2 to Aberdeen, 2-2 against St Johnstone, who couldn't score goals at the time. 3-3 against Dundee, and now 3-0 against Ross County. You think, what the hell's going on here? That's 15 goals in 5 games. And yet against the top two teams in the country, they were very, very competitive. It's just this epidemic of cheap goals they're giving away. I mean, they're probably not scoring enough, but if you're conceding 2 and 3 a game, you've got no chance. And if that decline is not arrested very, very soon, Stuart Kettlewell is going to be out of a job. That's the way of the world.
It's tough when you see guys who, you know, I got to know him a little bit of his work in the media and his time I've known him. He's a really nice guy, and it's not nice to see that happen. I guess he would have built up a lot of credit for the work he did when he first came in at Fir Park, Derek. But does he still have the backing from the fans, do you think?
I think if you'd asked me this before last night, I think the answer would have been a simple yes. You know, despite the results, the fans really seem to be behind him. They've seen the philosophy that Stuart has. A great start to the season. He was getting a lot more out of the same players that Stevie Hamill was earlier in the year. Last night, I'm hoping wasn't a turning point, you know, but what I would say is Motherwell Football Club don't want to be a club that are churning through managers. You know, if you want to be attractive to bringing managers in, you don't want to be going through 4 and 17 months. The players have to take some sort of degree of responsibility. You know, some of these players will be on their third manager, could potentially be on their fourth manager further down the line. There's clearly players in there who've got bags of ability. You know, your Slatteries and your Spittles are very, very good players.
Yeah,
we are missing some key players. You know, experienced players like Paul McGinn, who I would say would be a regular starter if he was around. Young Lennon Miller, who's been a revelation this season, you know, and will without a doubt go into bigger and better things. So I think Stuart's got a bit of time in him, but, you know, fans are, and you can see that from the response on social media last night, fans are losing patience and they want answers.
You look at the table, Derek, obviously there's games tonight, but Aberdeen 3 games in hand over you, St Johnstone 2, Livy 2. Yeah. So it's, I mean, you're now, instead of looking up the way, which you were earlier on this season, you're now looking over your shoulder.
Oh yeah, and Saturday we've got St Johnstone at home. You know, that's a massive game. You need to be coming away with that with 3 points. Nothing else is acceptable. My concern is, where's the clean sheet coming from? You know, what, 1 clean sheet all season, real concern. As we touched on, the set pieces, the defence has been really, really poor. But, you know, I maybe naively still have hope that we could turn this round.
Why do you think that they can be so disciplined in defence in games against Rangers and Celtic, and yet so loose against so many other teams? What is it about? And it's not all the defence; it's presumably midfield. It's the whole unit. Why this great disparity?
I think it's interesting because when Motherwell announced the team formation last night, or when they posted, you know, this is the starting lineup, the amount of people that were replying on Twitter and Facebook saying, "You're playing 3-4-3. You've done it twice this season and it hasn't worked." I don't know what Stuart's seen there that the fans aren't, you know, but he sees the players day in, day out. But you could see from the offset that there was going to be a bit of a backlash if this goes wrong. We set up slightly differently at Celtic Park and we defended very, very well. I don't know if there's just a belief when you go to these bigger grounds that you want to perform and your friends and family are there and it's on the telly, but you need to expect more from professional football players. And we've seen that group of players can give more. You know, that as Al touched on, the start of the season was very, very good. Maybe it's naivety, maybe it's stupidity, but football fans, and myself included, still believe that there could be something there. But, you know, if it doesn't come at the weekend, it's a big decision for the people that make those decisions.
Yeah, that could be pivotal, couldn't it? A change of manager certainly doesn't seem to have done Ross County any harm, to be fair, Tom. 7 points from 3 games under Derek Adams, 4 goals for 0 conceded. It's a pretty good start for him.
It's a phenomenal start. 3 clean sheets for a team that wasn't keeping many clean sheets at all. It's the classic managerial bounce, isn't it? Derek Adams, he's not everybody's cup of tea, that's for sure, but his track record in management is really, really good. And he's a nice fit with Ross County. And very quick, like from the get-go, he's getting results here, you know, and they're going up the table. So scoring goals, not conceding any, as you say, it's a very impressive start from Derek Adams.
This is the Scottish Football Podcast.
Finally, there are 4 fixtures in the Premiership this evening. Aberdeen host Kilmarnock, Hibs travel to Celtic Park, and there's the Battle of the Saints, St Johnstone against St Mirren at McDermott Park. But probably the game of the night is Hearts against Rangers at Tynecastle. Hearts certainly in a good run, Tom, 4 wins in a row, up to 3rd. Have you seen more from them in recent weeks that has impressed you?
I've seen kind of more stability in the team, Al, and more confidence. I'm seeing players, albeit Boyce is out now, but players coming back into it. There's a cavalry coming over the hill for Hearts. Gordon, Halkett, Atkinson, Barry Mackay, all close. So that's 4 very important players That's going to come into the loop very soon, I think. And I see wins. I see better defensive performances. I see a kind of confidence coming into the side. So tonight, I think will be interesting. You know, we think back to the dramatic 2-1 with Danilo and Tavernier penalty in the last minute. That was, if we get anything like that kind of drama and controversy, we'll be lapping it up.
Yeah, I mean, Rangers are clearly still unbeaten under Philippe Clement, but having seen them a few times of late, they still don't look entirely convincing, and this will clearly be a tough test for them this evening, you'd imagine.
I think it will be. You know, there's too many unconvincing players in this team, and I'll be fascinated to see what Clement does with them, with the Lammers, with Cifuentes, with a couple of others. They've gone through a difficult week, you know, with the whole Todd Cantwell thing. Now he's back in the middle of the park. McCausland is out wide. That looks way better instantly. So there's still a lot of issues there. Their AGM I thought was very interesting. John Bennett, the chairman, laying it out in no uncertain terms about the financial kind of waste that's been at the club. And if you go through the content of what he says, a lot of interesting detail there, a lot of criticism, veiled in part criticism of previous regimes under Beale and Ross Wilson. So I don't think there's going to be much spend at all in January. I don't think they have it to spend unless they move players out. I think they'll be desperate to move players out. So that game tonight will be a big, big test of Rangers' mettle.
Let's look at the other fixtures. How badly does Barry Robson need a win for Aberdeen against Kilmarnock?
Oh, God, massively. Again, you know, the results in Europe have been good. They haven't got through, but they have you know, very credible performance in Europe. Domestically, a bit of a disaster zone. So he hasn't had Europe to contend with over the last week or so he can't say, oh, we're just on the back of a European trip that's affected our domestic. Probably he can't go to that place this time. They have to win this game. The record is awful at the moment, and I think it is a winnable game. Kilmarnock can't travel. I mean, their results on the road are appalling for quite a long time now. Aberdeen 3 wins out of 13 in the league, not good enough. They better make it 4 tonight.
Like Hearts, Hibs have found a bit of form. Celtic have found it difficult to break some teams down when they sit in and defend, but I'm not sure that's how Nick Montgomery is going to approach this game tonight, really.
Probably not. Again, Hibs have caused problem for Celtic over the last, say, 3 games. They got a 0-0 earlier on this season. They beat them 4-2 at the end of last season. Okay, it wasn't Celtic's strongest team, but it was still a good Celtic team. And Celtic beat them 3-1 before that, but 2 very late goals, and Youan had been sent off earlier in that game. So Hibs have put it up to Celtic kind of 3 times now. And I'd be surprised if they didn't fire a few shots tonight. I don't expect them to win, but I think Celtic are going to have to play pretty well to see them off.
And St Mirren looking to end a 4-game losing run away from home at St Johnstone, who certainly look like they've improved under Craig Levein, but they still desperately need the points, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Look, every point is vital for Craig Levein, and goals vital. He's made a very good start as well, let's be honest. You know, he's a very encouraging start to his time there. St Mirren, is it 2 wins from 10 in the league? Something of that order. You know, and still they're sitting 4th. So again, gosh, Stephen Robinson, he needs a win. Like everybody needs a win, right? This is the mantra. All of these teams need a win. They're not all going to win, unfortunately. There'll be some disappointed managers tonight, but Levein and Stephen Robinson, they could definitely do with a win.
Well, we shall see how it all pans out. That's all from us today. My thanks to Tom English and Derek Watson of the Welsh Society. Jonathan Sutherland will have highlights of all tonight's action on Sports Scene at 10:40 on BBC One Scotland, and then he'll be here with Ian McCall tomorrow to look back at the games and to preview the weekend's championship action. So if you've got any questions for them, get them into scottishfootball@bbc.co.uk. Thanks for listening.
Hi, it's Amy Irons here. I just wanted to tell you that Sacked in the Morning is back for a new series. We are your survival guide to football management. If you want to hear exactly what goes on in the dugouts and dressing rooms across the world, then we are the pod for you. And as ever, I'll be joined by former Scotland gaffer Craig Levein and some of football's best managers to provide all the insight you could possibly need. And you can find it on BBC Sounds. Just search for Sacked in the Morning.